Now I know we're probably all a little tired of hearing this, but we live in a truly fast-paced world. We see industries are changing, disciplines are changing, requirements are changing. Basically everything changes all the time. And since I took some time off recently to find my own way to adapt to these changes, I changed my view on a couple of issues. And today we're going to talk about one of them. Hi, my name is Kat and I teach people about writing in tech, and on this channel you will find everything that you need to know about writing, telling a great story and making the world a better place with words. So if you care about all of that just as much as I do, make sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you get all the notifications when a new video is up, because this channel is back, baby. So, as you might know, I have been working as a UX writer for almost 8 years now. I have been a teacher and instructor in the field for about 4 years now, and throughout that time, especially my practical experience has helped me see firsthand what matters, what skills we need to bring, are there any hot topics that companies want or expect us to explore, etc. And with that recent big shift through AI and the consequences that followed, a lot of our work and job profiles have shifted too. And that led me to new perspectives and also revisit some of my former positions on certain topics. And one very specific point that I made earlier in my career, a hill that I was really ready to die on, is a standpoint that today I would even consider kind of counterproductive and even risky to some extent. So I wanted to come up here to talk about it today. And that is the fact that I made it a point to strictly distinguish the discipline of UX writing from other neighboring disciplines like copywriting, content writing, and technical writing. Don't get me wrong, these disciplines are still very different from each other. There are important ways in which we need to distinguish them from each other, like they have different purposes, they follow different principles, they fulfill different goals, etc. It's very important to know that and to have these differences in mind when we do our work. However, with explaining these differences, for example, in some of my videos on this channel, I sometimes also made it a point to encourage especially UX writers to kind of defend and protect the boundaries of their craft. So if you are a UX writer and you were asked to do copywriting tasks, for example, I'd encourage you to say that, hey, I'm a UX writer and copywriting is something else, a whole craft on its own, and it's not part of a UX writer's job profile to also do copywriting tasks. And to be honest, I understand past Dr. Kat's perspective. She definitely had a point there, because 5 years ago or so, people would just call all kinds of digital texts UX writing, even if what you did was writing newsletters. At some point, the term UX writer was being thrown around like crazy because people thought it was kind of the concept of a person who just writes user-centered content, like in general. And of course, that could be pretty misleading. And there was a certain chance that you could end up in a marketing job when what you actually wanted or applied for was a UX writing job, which again means you cannot show your skills and experience to the fullest. So this point is indeed very valid, and it was especially valid at that time. And I know what I'm talking about, because that's exactly what happened to me a couple of years ago. But as I said, times have changed a little. So let's first see how exactly times have changed, and then also how that made me change my perspective on this. Now, we all know that AI technology has caused quite a stir in the tech industry, because as AI tools advance, large parts of product development are expected to be automated, or at least many people are fascinated by the possibility to automate as many things in the product development process as possible. So we have more and more tools for vibe coding, even vibe designing, and also, of course, writing. There are now countless AI-powered writing tools and plugins on the market that claim they could write the perfect copy for you in your voice and tone, adjusted to the very specific needs of your specific target audience, and so on. And I'm not saying they're actually doing that. And if you know my standpoint on automating writing tasks, you might know that I'm very skeptical and that I don't necessarily think these tools are doing a great job in keeping their promises. But we do have to acknowledge that the promise these tools make are exactly what causes the stir in our industry. Because now companies and decision makers wonder like, hey, we actually wanted to hire a UX writer or a copywriter, but maybe we should not do that right away. Maybe we should wait and just try this new tool, give it to our UX designer or our marketing manager because they're very good with words already. So let's first see if they could handle the writing with the help of this new tool before we hire a designated person for that. And you know how it probably goes. The UX designer or the marketing manager or Bob, the product owner, will get something out of this tool. Yes, it's a little extra work and it might need some editing and tweaking, and the copy is probably far from being good, but somehow it's working. They're able to generate some output with that tool. And the problem is, for many companies, that's enough. They're okay with that, especially if they're currently struggling financially or they're operating in an uncertain market as well. And especially if they've never worked with a specialized writer before, they probably don't even know that that's a bad solution for many, many reasons. But you know, it's not only the UX designer who might take on UX writing tasks. It's also other writers. Like in many cases, the marketing copywriter is asked to do the UX writing too. Some companies do that because they don't even know what UX writing is and how it's different from copywriting. And other companies do that because they simply don't want or cannot invest in hiring and employing a designated UX writer, simply because product development or the creative industry is not the only area disrupted by AI. Many companies go out of business simply because their standalone software was once capable of doing something that can now be done with ChatGPT for free. And now what's the consequence of all of that? The consequence is that many writers need to take on writing tasks that are outside of their core specialization. So copywriters do both the copywriting and the UX writing because their companies simply won't hire a designated UX writer or vice versa. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden copywriting and UX writing are the very same thing. It just means that more and more copywriters might be required to take on UX writing tasks, and UX writers might need to take on technical writing tasks, for example. And I think that that's a really important thing to acknowledge, that there might be a trend where the boundaries between the professional writing disciplines are getting more and more blurry. And I consider this an even more important trend for us writers than anything else. Like if you ask me, you as a UX writer don't need to learn like vibe coding or designing. Like why? A scenario where you as a UX writer suddenly need to be a UX designer is not very probable, but you as a UX writer suddenly being required to take on some technical writing tasks or some documentation tasks, that is very probable. Of course, I wish that was not the case, but currently, unfortunately, that's what the tech industry looks like. And we do ourselves the biggest favor when we acknowledge the situation and prepare for it accordingly. So getting back to where I would like to kind of adjust my perspective or standpoint to the recent changes in our industry a little bit, theory is not practice. In theory, copywriting, UX writing, technical writing, and content writing are very, very different from each other. And as professionals, it's very important that we know and understand these differences. But in practice, as AI emerges and as companies are more hesitant to hire experts, we increasingly see that the job profiles of highly specialized writers just merge. So instead of insisting on these differences between the writing disciplines in practice, while they are very important to understand in theory, your current career chances and outlook will probably benefit from strategically learning about relevant neighboring writing disciplines as well. For example, say you are a UX writer and you make it a point to obtain skills in conversation design. That might come in very handy in the current job market where more and more companies use chatbots. And I want to be very clear about one thing. The fact that the lines between the writing disciplines may blur in practice and single writers are expected to cover more and more writing tasks also outside their area of specialization is a concerning trend regarding the job market. And I'm actually really frustrated about the fact that we don't even hear about that issue a lot, because when we hear UX writers or content designers speak, for example, at conferences or in interviews, they quite often come from big corporations like Microsoft or Wix or Apple, which of course have several dedicated writing teams, specialized writing teams. But in small or mid-sized companies, the large majority of companies, sometimes there is only one full stack writer who's responsible for literally any writing tasks. That is still the reality for many writers. And if you ask me, it's a topic that is not talked about enough. While this might be a concerning trend for us as individuals, there are also positive aspects to this because it makes you more flexible in an increasing inflexible job market. So say you have that additional conversation design qualification and you're being laid off from your current job as a UX writer. You might want to apply for conversation design jobs, of which we might find more in the current market. So there are also new opportunities and more chances, more doors being opened for you here. But there is actually another very cool upside, and that is that looking more left and right from your specific writing discipline will also benefit you in your everyday work, even if you stick with your specialization, simply because of the strong interconnectedness between the different writing disciplines in practice. Now, as I said, I don't only teach UX writing, I've also worked as a UX writer for many, many years, and I can tell you that when you work as a UX writer, you will see, for example, how important it is to align your product messaging with the messaging that's happening outside the product. For example, in marketing. As I always say, UX keeps the promises that marketing makes. And being able to ensure that your company has a well-aligned messaging across all touch points, like your app, your website, your social media channels, your customer support emails, your newsletters, that requires knowledge about all these other writing disciplines to some extent, because in an ideal world, no matter if you work as a specialized UX writer or as a broader full stack writer, you will need to consider these other touch points outside of your very own specialization if you really want to do a good job. So even as a specialized UX writer on the product team that is responsible for the UX writing and the UX writing only, you will also need to learn about the things users most frequently complain about to customer service, because you might be able to prevent these complaints through changes in your UX copy. Or maybe what your company needs is a helpful blog post about your product. Then you would need to talk to your marketing department and, work something out together. Or you need to collaborate with a technical writer to create a helpful FAQ section. Whatever it is, in an ideal world, all the writing disciplines, all the communication touchpoints that help the customer find and use your product should work together very, very closely, also to ensure consistency, not only in style, but also in messaging. And here it really helps having a basic understanding of your neighboring writing disciplines. And that's especially true because that means in practice, particularly in smaller companies, you might work very closely with writers from neighboring communication disciplines, or even help them write something. And that's when, as I said, you will benefit from having looked left and right from your very own writing specialization. That doesn't mean that now you need to learn about any and every other writing discipline, but just see for yourself how you can strategically and systematically broaden your horizon just a little bit, maybe in directions that you're also excited about for yourself, and where you could also see yourself take jobs, just in case you lose yours and can't find one in your current field of specialization. So when I say broaden your horizon, I really don't mean turning yourself into some kind of, writing Swiss Army knife or a jack of all trades and master of none. This is not what I mean. I don't mean pretending that specialization doesn't matter. It absolutely does. And you still need to have your core discipline, your focus, your craft that you've invested years into. But that's your vertical. And you might think about intentionally, strategically adding a few horizontal layers that make you more resilient and more versatile in real life contexts, like basically a T-shaped profile. That's what you call it, where your expertise remains intact, but you understand enough of the adjacent disciplines to collaborate well, to connect the dots, and to even shift your career when you really, really want or need to. Now, what I'm doing personally, for example, is taking a stronger look in the strategic direction, which is why lately I focused more on brand storytelling and voice and tone and how to convey a brand message with words, especially because AI tools are really, really bad at this. But it gives me the opportunity to leave the sphere of doing the writing work and focusing more on brand communication and decision making in the form of orchestrating content strategies across all communication touchpoints as a whole and align them in terms of brand storytelling and voice and tone. So this is what I'm doing personally to keep my career future-proof and also to get a better understanding of the bigger picture of what our brand is doing. And this is also why I've been deeply concerned with voice and tone lately. And if you want to benefit from the results of my deep dive, you might want to check out my voice and tone masterclass, which covers all three aspects of voice and tone design: the theoretical part, the strategic part, and the practical part. So you get a very comprehensive guide in the form of an online course, but also in the form of me being by your side. This is actually the coolest thing for me about this masterclass. My students get to share their drafts and their work with me. I'll give them tips and tricks about how to involve stakeholders. It's a lot of fun and a great experience for both me and my students. So if you want to join, you can do this at any time at your own pace. A link to the courses in the description box below. Sorry for the detour, but the course is actually so good. I cannot stop mentioning it. But getting back to our track, this is what I do personally, and you might find your own way here. You might find your own neighboring areas left and right of your core discipline that you would like to dive into, and that might open new doors for you, make you an attractive candidate, and most of all, I promise it can also be very fulfilling. Okay, now with that being said, we're done for the day. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? How do you experience the job market? How do you experience UX writers and other kinds of writers being treated in companies? I think it's so important that we all reflect on our views, share our views, discuss our views from time to time, and either confirm them or adjust them to new knowledge and new realities. So if you want to share your very own personal learnings or insights, feel free to do so in the comments. Also, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you. Make sure to check out writewithdrkat.com for more writing education. Make sure to sign up to my newsletter, the UX Writing Memo, so that you don't miss out on a thing. Link is also in the description box below. And other than that, there is nothing left to say for me. As always, keep on writing, enjoy the process, and I hope to see you sometime soon.